So the best place to start with a model is an assumptions page. And this is a worksheet in your Google Doc that really lays out all the key assumptions that are going to drive your P&L for the business. It's really important to separate the assumptions from the rest of the model. So if you do want to go back and change an assumption, you don't have to go and look for every time it's replicated in a calculation. You just change the assumption up front, and if you've got all the formulas correct, it'll automatically flow through the rest of the model. So the first thing we want to do is let's talk about how many hours a day we want to trade. So we don't want to get up at 6 in the morning and go to bed at midnight every night for work. So let's just assume that we're going to open 5 hours a day. How many weeks a year do we want to be open? And remember, whatever you put in these assumptions, you can always tweak later if you find the economics don't work perfectly the first time. So let's just assume you want 4 weeks holiday, you want to close for Easter, you want to close for Christmas, and let's put in 45 weeks a year. Now let's think about how much we're going to charge for each muffin that we sell. So sales price per muffin. And let's assume after our research we've come up with a price of $4.50. So now we've got how much we're going to sell each muffin for. Let's think about how many muffins we're going to sell. So let's add an assumption for muffin sales per hour. And let's assume we can sell 15 muffins an hour. Enter in 15. Let's think about tea and coffee. So let's enter in the sales price for each tea or cup of coffee that you sell, and let's assume we sell tea and coffee for $3. And just to keep things simple, let's just assume there's one size of beverage that we sell, and then tea and coffee sales per hour. Okay, and let's assume we sell 15 cups of tea or coffee each hour. So now we have to think about whether we've got enough assumptions to generate all of our revenue. So we know how many muffins we're selling each hour, we know how much we're charging for those muffins, same with tea and coffee. We know how many weeks a year we're open and how many hours a day we're working, but it looks like we've forgotten how many days a week we're going to be open. That's important. Are you going to operate 5 days a week, or are you going to operate 7 days a week? So we need to add that assumption in, days per week, and it's typically good to keep like assumptions with like. So we need to insert a row. So if we just go insert row above the sales price per muffin, and we add in days per week. And let's assume we're going to be open 5 days a week, because it is quite nice to have weekends. All right, so now it looks like we've got all the revenue assumptions that will flow into our profit and loss statement. So now that we're pretty confident we've got all of our revenue assumptions, let's actually check that we can model our revenue in the cash flow statement within our profit and loss. When we think through the muffin sales, we need to say how many muffins we're going to sell per hour, per day, per year, and we're also going to need to think about how the cost of the muffin. So we've got all those assumptions laid out in our assumptions page. So in terms of muffin sales, we hit equals, which is how you start any formula, and then you go back to the assumptions page and you literally do a simple calculation. Same as you would on paper, but we know we're going to sell 15 muffins an hour times $4.50 per muffin, and we know we're going to be operating 5 hours a day, and we're going to be operating 45 weeks a year, and we're going to be operating 5 days a week. So once we do that calculation, we get muffin sales of about $75,000, $76,000 each year. So the reason we do formulas like this and link it back to the assumptions page is because if we want to change any of the assumptions, instead of actually changing numbers in the formula, we can just simply go back to the assumptions page and see how changes in the assumptions result in changes in the output. So for example, if we wanted to see what happens if we sell our muffins for $3 instead of $4.50. And if we go back to the cash flow, we see what happens is our revenue drops from $80,000 to $50,000. So that's quite a big difference in overall revenue.
Most business models are shown on an annual basis. If your assumptions change more frequently than that, you can show a business model on a monthly or quarterly basis. For example, if you're selling soup, you might expect to be more profitable in the winter months and less profitable in the summer months. So it might be interesting to see how your profitability changes over the course of the year. And in that case, you would want to build out your profit and loss on a monthly basis. Doesn't matter what time period you use, as long as you make sure when you express your final outputs, when you express the profit and loss statement or the cash flow, it's all in the same unit of time, which will generally be on an annual basis.
So once we're pretty sure we've got the formula right for year one, we need to copy that formula over for the next 2 years.
Most simple models will have at least a 3-year projection. When you're starting out your muffin and coffee shop, it might be that people hadn't heard about you, so you get very low volumes of traffic and people buying your product. You can expect over time that because your product is so incredible, you're going to get more people coming. You need to note those assumptions over time and use that increased volume to drive increased revenue projections over.
So if we're going to change the muffin sales per hour from 15, jump it up to 25 per hour in year 2 and 40 in year 3, in theory, we'd expect the revenue to go up over the year. So let's have a look and see if that's working correctly. Yep, it's great. So the revenues are going up from about 76,000 to 126,000 to 202,000. So just by selling that many more muffins per hour, the impact is quite significant over time. So now that it looks like we're pretty comfortable, we've got our muffin sales formula right, let's think about beverage sales. And there we've got roughly $50,000 of tea and coffee sales for the year. Again, we want to copy that formula over for year 2 and year 3. And because all of our assumptions are the same, that revenue line is flat. Total revenue, you just need to add up your muffin sales and your beverage sales. So equals muffin sales sell plus the beverage sales sell. And that's your total revenue, $126,500. And you can copy that formula over for years 2 and 3. It's the exact same formula. So Control C, Control V, or Command C, Control V are the shortcuts. If you need to do it in long form, you can go to Edit, Copy, and Paste.